4.8 conclusion. The important point is not that people keep doing inefficient things. This leads to a fundamental problem of coordination failure. Sometimes firm and other economic agents will be able to coordinate and achieve a better equilibrium on their own. The purpose of economic development theory is not only to understand underdevelopment, but also to devise effective policies to redress it. On one side, the analysis shows that the potential for market failure, especially as it affects the prospect for economic development, is broader and deeper than had been fully appreciated in the past. The coordination failure that may arise in the presence of complementaries highlight potential policies for deep intervention that move the economy to perfect equilibrium, or even to a high permanent rate of growth that can be self-sustaining. Policy choices are more momentous because a bad policy today could be an economy into a bad equilibrium for years to come. This is because government can be a major part of the problem, playing a key role in perpetuating a bad equilibrium, such as a high corruption regime. In part because some government officials and politicians may benefit personally from it. Why would corrupt officials have done so if they benefit from a stream of rents from it? uh, Stream of rents captured from public enterprises? The answer Stiglitz suggests is that these officials found that by corrupting the process of privatization, they could get not only a stream of corrupt rents from the annual operations of the enterprise, but also a share of the present discounted value of the whole future operation of the enterprise. Even when a government is not corrupt, the potential impact of a well-intentioned but flawed government policy is much greater when it can push the economy to a fundamentally different equilibrium, which may be difficult to reverse. Next, summary chapter 6, population growth and economics development, causes, consequences, and controversies. Next.
6.1 The basic issue population growth and the quality of life. In 2017, the world population reached about 7.6 billion people. United Nations Population Division projected that the population will rise to about 8.6 billion in 2030, 9.8 billion by 25 2050, and 11.2 billion in 2010. The issues relating population growth to economic development, historical and recent population trends, the changing geographic distribution of the world's people. Every year, about 83 million people are being added to the world population. This happens a lot in developing countries, but the problem is not simply a problem of numbers. The problem of population growth is a problem of human welfare and development. Rapid population growth can have serious consequences for the well-being of all humanity. 6.2 World population growth, past, present, and future. 6.2.1 History. Turning from absolute numbers to percentage growth rates for almost the whole of human existence on Earth until approximately 300 years ago, population grew at an annual rate not much greater than zero. Naturally, this overall rate was not steady. There were many ups and downs as a result of natural catastrophes and variation in growth rates among regions. The reason for the sudden change in overall population trend is that for almost all of the recorded history, the rate of population change, whether up or down, had been strongly influenced by the combined effects of famine, disease, malnutrition, plague, and work conditions that result in high and fluctuating death rates.
6.2.3 Demographic structure and the hidden momentum of population growth. Population growth has a built-in tendency to continue, a powerful momentum that, like a speeding automobile when the brakes are applied, tends to keep going for some time before coming to a stop. In the case of population growth, this momentum can persist for decades after birth rates drop. These are two basic reasons for this. High birth rates cannot be altered substantially overnight. The population age structure of most low-income countries and some middle-income countries. Fertility has declined substantially in virtually all countries since 1965. Next. 6.3 Demographic structure and the demographic transition. Demographic transition is a process by which fertility rates eventually decline to lower stable levels, has been portrayed by a famous concept in economic demography. Stage 1, before the economic modernization, these countries for centuries had a stable or very slow growing population as a result of a combination of high birth rates and almost equally high death rates. Stage 2 began with modernization, associated with their public health methods, healthier diets, higher incomes, and other improvements, led to a marked reduction in mortality that gradually raised life expectancy from under 40 years to over 60 years. However, the decline in death rates was not immediately accompanied by a decline in fertility. As a result, the growing divergence between high birth rates and falling death rates led to a sharp increase in population growth compared to past centuries. Stage 2 thus marks at the beginning of the demographic transition, the transition from stable or low growing population first to rapidly increasing numbers and then to declining rates. Stage 3 was entered when the forces and influences of modernization and development caused the beginning of a decline in fertility, eventually falling birth rates converged with lower death rates, leaving little or no population growth. Next.
6.4 the cases of high fertility in developing countries, the Malthusian and household models. 6.4.1 The Malthusian population trap. Writing in his 1798 essay on the principle of population and drawing on the concept of diminishing returns, Malthus postulated a universal tendency for the population of a country unrestricted by dwindling food supplies to grow at geometric rate doubling every 30 to 40 years. At the same time, because of diminishing returns to the fixed factor line, food supplies could expand only at a roughly arithmetic rate. The basic Malthusian model can be illustrated by comparing the shape and position of curves representing population growth rates and aggregate income growth rates when the two curves are each plotted against levels of per capita income. The Howard-Domar models, the rate of total income growth is greater than the rate of population growth. Income per capita is rising. The rate of total income growth is less than the rate of population growth. Income per capita is falling. According to modern-day neo-Malthusians, poor nation will never be able to rise much above their substance levels of per capita incomes unless they initiate preventive checks, birth control on their population growth. In the absence of such preventive checks, Malthusian positive checks, starvation, disease, wars on population growth will inevitably provide the restraining force. Countries or regions in such a population trap can also escape it by achieving technological progress that shift the income growth rate curve up at only level of per capita income. In this way, the population trap equilibrium is eliminated altogether, and the economy is able to proceed with self-sustaining growth.
6.4 Point two, criticism of the Malthusian model. The Malthusian population is based on a number of simplistic assumptions and hypotheses that do not stand the test of empirical verification. We can criticize the population trap on two major grounds. First, the model ignores the enormous impact of technological progress in offsetting the growth inhibiting forces of rapid population increases. Second, assumption that national rates of population increase are directly positively related to the level of national per capita income. We continue to study the Malthusian trap for four main reasons. First, many people still believe the Malthus trap holds in poor countries today. Second, the evidence indicates that such traps have occurred in the historical past and may be been factors in population collapses. Third, appreciating that the Malthus model are generally prevailed between the agricultural revolution until the industrial revolution highlights the essential roles of scientific and technological progress in modern economic growth. Four, the fact that this model does not currently apply underlines the importance of factors that can prevent its reemergence. These include efforts to continue steady and sustainable rises in agricultural productivity. Next. 6.4.3, the microeconomics household theory of fertility. In the application of this theory, the fertility analysis, children are considered a special kind of consumption, and in developing countries, particularly low-income countries, investment. So that fertility becomes a rational economic response to the consumers, for families, demand for children relative to other goods. According to the demand-based theory of fertility, the household choose from among all attainables combination that one combination of goods and children that maximize family satisfactions on the basis of its subjectively determined preference. Next.
6.4.2, the demand for children in developing countries. The economic theory of fertility assumes that the household demand for children is determined by family preference for a certain number of surviving, usually male children. In regions of high mortality, parents may produce more children than they actually desire in the expectation that some will not survive. By the price or opportunity cost of rearing these children and by levels of family income, children in poor societies are seen partly as economic investment goods in that there is an expected return in the form of both child labor and the provision of financial support for parents in old age. The choice mechanism in the economic theory of fertility as applied to developing country is assumed therefore to exist primarily with regard to the additional marginal children who are considered as investment. In deciding whether or not to have additional children, parents are assumed to weigh private economic benefits against private costs, where the principal benefits are the expected income from child labor, usually on the farm, and eventual financial support for elderly parents. Son preference: the preference for sons over daughters is particularly prevalent in South Asia and East Asia. One implication of son preference is a higher overall birth rate if gender at birth is random, as some families try again for a boy. Some empirical evidence as women become better educated, they tend to earn a larger share of household income and to produce fewer children.
6.4.5, implication for development and fertility, specifically birth rates among the very poor are likely to fall where the following socioeconomic changes come to pass. An increase in the education of women, an increase in female non-agricultural wage, employment opportunities, a rise in family income levels through the increased direct employment, a reduction in infant mortality through expanded public health programs, the development of old age and other social security systems, expanded schooling opportunities. Next. 6.5, the consequences of high fertility. 6.5.1, it's not a real problem. Three general lines of argument. The problem is not population growth, but other issues under development. World resources depletion and environmental destruction, population distribution, subordination of women, population growth is a false issue deliberately created by dominant rich country agencies and institutions to keep developing countries in their dependent conditions. For many developing countries and religions, population growth is in fact desirable. Next.
6.5.2, it's a deliberately contrite false issue. Basically, it's a good that the over concern in the rich nation with the population growth of poor nation is really an attempt by the farmer to hold down the development of the latter in order to maintain an international status quo that is favorable to the rich nation's self-interest. Rich nations are pressuring poor nations to adopt aggressive population control programs, even though they themselves went through a period of sizable population increase that accelerated their own development process. 6.5.3. It's a desirable phenomenon. A more conventional economic argument is that of population growth as an essential ingredient to stimulate economic development. Larger population provide the needed consumer demand to generate favorable economics of scale in production, to lower production costs and provide a sufficient and low-cost labor supply to achieve higher output level.
6.5.4, it is a real problem. The extremist argument, population and global crisis, it is regarded as the principal cause of poverty, low levels of living, malnutrition, ill health, environmental degradation, and a wide array of other social problems. The theoretical argument, population, poverty cycles, and the need for family planning programs, the main argument advanced by economists who hold that too rapid population growth yields negative economic consequences and thus should be a real concern for developing countries. Other empirical arguments, seven negative consequences of population growth, rap, rapid population growth lowers per capita income growth in most developing countries, especially those that are already poor, dependent on agriculture, and experiencing pressures on land and natural resource. The negative consequences of rapid population growth fall most heavily on the poor because they are the ones who are made landless, suffer first from cuts in government health and education programs, and bear the burden of environmental damage. Next. It is generally agreed that large family size and low income restrict the opportunities of parents to educate all their children. High fertility harms the health of mother and children. Feeding the world's population is made more difficult by rapid population growth. A large fraction that developing country food requirements are the result of population increases. Rapid population growth contributes to environmental degradation. The increase in international migration, both legal and illegal, to be one of the major consequences of developing countries' population growth. Next.
6.6. Some policy approaches control their population growth and distribution, lessen their disproportionate consumption of limited world resources, and promote a more equitable distribution of the benefits of global economic progress. Help developing countries achieve their population objectives. Sekian dari kelompok kami, kurang lebihnya mohon maaf. Assalamualaikum
Assalamualaikum
warahmatullahi
warahmatullahi
wabarakatuh.
wabarakatuh.